Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today we were lucky enough to go hyperconscious with a gentleman all the way from Ontario, Canada. We're just busting down borders.
Yeah.
Doing whatever we want.
And Kevin just said Canada.
Brad Mcleod. Brad Mcleod is somebody who he's super big into addiction and the industry surrounding addiction, trying to help people get sober, stay sober. And the reason we had him on is because if you can get sober, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Anything. And you can attest to this.
Yeah. One of the biggest challenges in my life was becoming alcohol free and really getting control of that, becoming the master and not the slave. Because basically a quote from one of my favorite books, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino, he says, "The key to all success is good habits. Bad habits are the unlocked door to failure." And I think that addiction, we're addictive creatures. Human beings are addictive by nature. Whatever you do, you're going to get really good at and you're going to be reinforced to do more of. And we always say that, everything that you love right now, you learned to love. So you can learn to unlove it and then love something more positive, right? So Brad was awesome. That was a great interview.
Absolutely. I think just the mindset behind this is what's happening. I don't like what's happening. I need to figure out a way to fix that. That just goes hands in hand with dream chasing. He's also an entrepreneur who just started his own business.
Yes.
It's like everything's in alignment.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to have somebody like Brad on. We had Brad on, and now we have another ally in the journey.
Yes, absolutely. So enjoy this episode. We went really deep, touched my heart and soul for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin and I almost cried at one point.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's definitely the real fucking deal. Enjoy.
It's the real fucking deal. You guys will enjoy it.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. No. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that fucking thing. They're going to want to see that fucking thing, Alan. That fucking face. You good? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. As always, we have a story about how we connect with our guests, and our guest today is Brad Mcleod, all the way from, where are you from, Ontario?
Yep, Ontario, about 45 minutes from Toronto.
Okay, all right. So I made a post, and you liked my post, and as I've said on many, many other episodes, when somebody likes something I post or they comment or they follow me, I always try to do a little background research to see who this person is, what they're about, and I was so happy to see what you were about. You're in recovery and you're all about helping people that have addictions, and honestly, it seemed like you were just a happy person who has good vibes to put out there, and now you're putting good vibes out with us.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about for me, is to spread that positivity and that encouragement to everybody who tunes in.
So Instagram can be a scary place when you're putting your story out there for everybody to see. What made you go public, and what made you go so public with your issues you've dealt with, your demons, and how you got over them? Like, what made you want to kind of be in the spotlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think for addictions, especially for people who struggle, I mean, the stigma is huge, and I think those walls are breaking down over time. But it was important for me because a lot of the conversations, and I work in the addiction field also, now part-time, but when I first started this, I was working full-time.
Okay.
And people were put into a box.
Totally.
That it was a homeless person. It was, they had these issues, and this was the people. And here I was, an everyday person wearing, a button-up shirt, and I walk into a place and I share my story, and the first thing people say is, "Brad, I can't picture that. I don't see that being your story and your journey." So I wanted to spread that message out there, that what people see on TV and what people have come to believe that addict fits into this box is completely not true.
Yeah. So the transformation from who you used to be to who you are now, you want to be living, breathing proof of sort of what's possible for other people, right?
Of course.
Ah, that's
Of course.
awesome. So what's your take on people being labeled or labeling themselves? I wrote an article about 3 years ago when I was kind of going through my own sort of recovery process and trying to quit drinking. It was an article called, it's on my LinkedIn, it's called Identity and the Power of Self-Labels. And it basically talks about how I traded a label of alcoholic in for the label of bodybuilder and fitness model. And what we believe we are, we eventually, start acting on, and then we eventually become. And then that's the polished product that other people eventually see. And then they tell you, Brad, I can't believe that this was your old story because you've transformed so much that it's almost like a whole different world. So what's your take on labels, being labeled, self-labels, that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a good thing for you. I mean, it depends, kind of how you're using that and what you're using it for, in the terms that you're describing, where you say that's what you want to be, and then your thoughts start to follow, your actions start to follow, and then eventually you become that. But people can use labels too to also, like I said before, put people in a box, categorize people, exclude people. So, I mean, I think there's pros and cons to that, but I mean, everything's going to start with your actions and your thoughts. Like most of us, like you could probably relate, becoming an alcoholic or being an alcoholic and me being an addict. Like these things didn't happen overnight. These things were, we really worked hard in a sense with our actions and our thoughts to get there. And it's the same for getting out of it. But I think it's super cool about how you're trading, one thing that it consumed you in a sense of being an alcoholic or an addict. For me, it consumed my life, and that you switch it over to something positive. Like, I think that is awesome.
Yeah. So we had someone on the podcast. His name is Terrence McMahon. He's been a mentor of mine, and he also was basically an alcoholic for a very long time. He had a liver transplant, I think, a year and a half ago or so. He was basically, sort of on death row, so to speak, when it comes to, needing a transplant. And then they said, basically, if you don't get sober, you can't get a liver, obviously. And so he had to jump through all of that red tape. We're launching that episode soon, but it's someone I definitely want to put you in contact with because he's in that arena of recovery in general. But one of the things that he said is that we're all leaders, but some of us are just leading in the wrong way. And what he means by that is, he used to be the guy who, after baseball practice, he would, get the kegs and get the parties going. And so he was being a leader, but he wasn't being a leader necessarily in a positive direction. And so he's kind of turned all that around. What's your take on leadership, leading by example? And then I always say people will never do what you say, but they might do what you do. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And that's exactly where my mind went too. It's like, it's great to put a message out there and to do all this stuff, but it's the actions that people are really going to buy into.
Yeah.
And it's the consistent action that you do. So if people see that you're role modeling this consistent action on a regular basis, they're going to be more likely to maybe follow suit, ask questions, ask why you do it, be more interested than if you're just, I stay away from, for the most part, telling anybody what to do. I think recovery from anything, and recovery is very broad. It can be so many different things that we recover from as human beings, but it's for people to find their own journey and what works for them, and not so much me telling everybody. I do share how I overcame a lot of obstacles, and if people like it, they can dive right in, but if they don't, that's cool too. So I think it's important to definitely lead by example every day.
I feel like people definitely like it because you have so many. It's almost like you have your own community of people that comments like on your posts, and that's one thing I really like about you, Brad. I see that you get back to like everybody who comments on your posts.
Yeah, I do. What I do when I go to the gym, and I'm not a huge into the gym. I use the gym maybe less for fitness and more for mental health, which for you guys, because I've seen you guys, it's probably like, well, that's a little bit different. But I struggle a lot with anxiety and stress and stuff like that, and that's really a huge coping strategy for me, is going to the gym. So when I go to the gym, they have like a sit down bike. It's probably nobody ever uses it. It's got to be like the laziest man's bike. It's got a backrest on it. I'll sit there for half an hour and be productive and respond to people while I'm exercising, in a sense.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
That's a great idea because I would like when I was doing. So are you a fan of like the bike, or do you just do it because it helps you? Because like if you're doing something you don't necessarily like when I do cardio, I'll watch something that I really really like on Netflix. So it's kind of like a net even, like a net. You know what I mean? I'm doing something I don't really like, but I'm also doing something I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really, I don't know. I don't really enjoy the bike, but it just makes it makes it easy to send a text message, to send comments or reply, just kind of in that position other than, maybe doing like the rowing, the rowing stuff that wouldn't work very well.
No, you need your hands. You need your hands to text.
So when you're on the bike and you're getting back to people, I think that when the blood is flowing, when we're exercising, it's one of the several genius states. Like there's a bunch of them. There's one of them is like when you're sexually intimate, that's a genius state. One of them is meditation. One of them is whenever you're in water, like in the shower. A lot of our best thoughts come to us in the shower or the bathtub or whatever it is. One of them is exercise for sure. So I think that when you're in that sort of genius state, when the blood is flowing, it's a really good peak state to be getting back to people, especially when you want to have sort of those positive vibes. And if you're in a good mood and your blood is flowing, you're more likely to be positive towards those other people. We just saw a post that you made where you had 125 comments. So a lot of people are being, benefited by your leading by example, and I just want to applaud you for that because, dude, I'm 249 days sober as of today, and people ask me constantly, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you do it? And I just tell them, like, it took me literally years and years and years. I can't even tell you how long I've wanted to be sober, and I failed forward constantly until eventually I finally felt like the master and not the slave. Do you feel like you've really mastered it? And how do we get people to take that baby step in the right direction if they really do want to be sober like us? And again, they need to want it if they want to do it. Mm-hmm. But if they really do want it deep down, because what I've found is that a lot of people deep down, I think, want to be sober and fit. And obviously alcohol is really terrible for fitness. What is your take on that? And what do we say to them to like get started so that they realize like you're gonna screw it up? Like I can't even tell you how many times I was like, Alan, you're not drinking tonight, and then you did. Like I can't even count. Like there's been probably 1,000 times where I didn't want to drink and I did. And it's like, how do we get people to kind of take that first baby step towards sobriety?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and like I struggled with that too. I mean, I wasn't heavy into drinking, but with opiates and heroin was basically where I was. But I would spend a certain amount of money, or I would say this is going to last me 1 week or something like that, like this insanity, and it never panned out. But I think when people are ready and they ask those questions, and it's a big struggle because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people in recovery. And I mean, relapse is really a part of the journey. I mean, it's a part of my journey, and a lot of people in the recovery community, and I've been making some videos about this, about people understanding that if that's what happens, it's okay. But there's a lot of people out there who spread a message that, well, if you relapse, you're not working a program, you're not working something. I look at it the other way, because the only person who can relapse is somebody who's actually trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
I think the first step anybody's really got to take is you got to be honest that there's a serious problem. Just like you had mentioned, stuff like that is what you need to reflect on. Look, I committed to myself for today. I am not drinking. And when you get to a spot where you're like, and I cannot actually follow through with that, you got to be honest about, like, this is serious business here. This is really tough. So getting honest with yourself and not with other people, because honesty, I think sometimes is people consider it to be with someone else. I think with ourselves is where we really got to be honest that, hey, this is a problem. And then I ask for help. I mean, that's quickly after, is like, because you can't necessarily do all this alone. We got to have some support, some people helping us out along the way.
And you were just talking about, like, you have to do it for you. You have to want to do it. I read one of your, I guess we'll call it a meme. I think anything that's like in that style is considered a meme, but a lot of memes are negative and all of yours are super positive. So I want people to know that. It was basically, if you're searching for that one person that will change your life, take a long look in the mirror. Ooh. And I resonate with you so much because I don't like sugarcoating shit. And I want people to realize, like, at the end of the day, no matter what it is, I mean, we talk a lot about chasing your dreams and living your dream purpose, your passion, what you were here for. I want people to know that, like, the thing in the mirror is why you're not doing what you should do. You know what I mean? Like, people have to understand that tough love is still love.
Yep.
You should love yourself, but not if you're not being your best self. You want to be the best version of yourself. You can love that person, aspire to be better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. I mean, that was a big part that weighed into my continued use. Is I was a victim of my own life. I was a victim of circumstances. I was a victim of the education system. I was a victim of society. I was a victim of everything that I could possibly justify to continue destroying and killing myself. It was only until I did something simple like that, and I looked in the mirror, and I was actually in prison at the time, and I looked into the mirror, and I knew I had a decision to make, is that, you know, you're going to continue to spend your life in places like this, or you're going to change your life, and there's nobody else who's going to do it for you. And I know there are people who are, you know, spiritual and religious, and some people, I get some flack from those people that are like, you know, I put that stuff up and they're like, well, you know, this person or that's going to save me. And that stuff is like perfectly cool, and I respect it 110. But in my life, when I made those decisions, I knew it was going to be up to me. And there might be some guidance and some spirituality along the way, but ultimately 99% of it was going to be based on my decisions, closely followed by my actions. Nobody was coming to save me.
Closely followed by your actions. I love that you mentioned that, because when it's not a real decision until you do something in that direction, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
It's so huge. So one of the things that you mentioned is a support system. I think that, you know, I have a bunch of self-made millionaire mentors, but when I say that, I say it with a grain of salt, because no one is self-made. I would not be who I am without the wonderful people in my life. I know you can say the same thing. That said, you do have to make your own decision, and you have to commit to that within yourself. That's step one. But then having support along that journey is critical. So I struggled to get sober for years and years and years, and I failed forward. One of the things that really tipped the scale for me is, you know, you've probably heard that saying that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think wholeheartedly, and again, this is not rooted in some giant study or anything, this is just my own life experience. I think that when 3/5 out of your strongest influences are a certain way, you tend to tip in that direction. I've seen this time and time again in my own life and in my closest loved ones. So one thing when it comes to support that I want anyone who really has a goal to be, you know, sober or to overcome anything in their life, really, take a look at your closest associations, and then take a look at if 3 out of the 5 top associations that you have, people you spend the most time with or relate to most, resonate with most, if they are, for example, sober, chances are you're going to be sober too, or at least it's going to be much easier to do that. So for me, I started dating Jenny Brooke. I dated her in high school. We broke up. We had a 10-year, you know, we joke, a 10-year break. And then we reconnected last year, man. And she is not a big drinker, like, at all. I mean, she's one of those people who literally can say, I'm going to have a glass of wine, and she won't even finish that glass. Like, which to me is just amazing, because I tend to be, you know, I'm going to
all or nothing.
Yeah, a little bit. So she blows me away in every way, man. But I got to tell you, like, that influence tipped the 3/5 for me. And I feel like ever since then, she kind of liked me more as sober, whereas a lot of my upbringing, when I drink, I'm a lot of fun, I'm outgoing, right, extroverted, that's all great. But she really liked the sober me and, you know, loved the sober me. And because I love her so much and she really wanted that for me and for us, I think that really tipped it for me. And now it just seems so much easier, man. And when I look at my top 5 people I spend the most time with, they're all fitness oriented. They're all in great shape. They're all dream chasers. And they're all pretty much not big drinkers. You know, if you look at Nate, Matt, you, Jenny, Copeland, like, none of them drink that often.
No.
And those are the people that I've associated with most closely with this year. And I just want people to realize that, like, take a look at who you're around, because if you do want to get sober, but yet you're constantly being triggered by other people that you love and respect that are choosing to do that, and that's their call, that's totally fine, but it's also your call as to whether or not you want to be in that room. So what's your experience with your associations, and did you start to shift those as you kind of sought sobriety? And then, like, what is your top 5 people you spend the most time with back then versus today? And, like, is that drastic or is it the same? What's your take?
Yeah, no, I mean that's hugely important, and you're gonna hear that from anybody who talks about success or shares about success or shares about getting somewhere, where they want to be. Is that foundation, the people you spend time with, is sort of like a mastermind in a sense. But yeah, I mean the people I used to hang out with have changed dramatically from who they are now. I mean, my social life and the people I'd like to hang out with is not exactly where I would like it at this point. Being an entrepreneur and quitting my job and kind of working from home over the last year has really, impacted, in some ways good, in some ways not good, and that's something I'm personally working on. I did just have a daughter too. She's a little over 6 months old.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So that, in a sense, will you don't have as much time as maybe you used to. But my wife is amazing too and supportive. And for me, it's important to have people who believe in you. Sometimes chasing a dream, and you guys might be able to relate with this, you get lost in the process. You get lost in wondering if, when I look at my bank account and I have $76 and I'm just like, I'm this is a couple months ago, and, I have a mortgage of $1,600 and I'm supposed to be providing for my family. You question what you're doing and if you're on the right path, and having, those 5 people around you who believe in you, even when you lose sight of that yourself, is a game changer. Because I would have, on that day, if it was just me, lonely Brad by himself, I would have thrown in the towel and I would have went and got a job.
Yeah, man. Ooh.
So, you know,
I think that I always say this to Alan, and Alan always is very appreciative, but Alan was the reason I am doing this. Like, when Alan and I reconnected, I was in a weird spot. I was in debt. I was doing a lot of things that I wasn't happy doing, and Alan gave me the belief. Like, Alan made me believe in myself because he believes in himself so much. And people, I've gotten flack myself for saying, like, people have said, oh, you always post about the same thing. And I say, yes, because you post about the same thing, but it's the Kardashians. I post about the things that matter. That's who I am. I want to impact people that way, and I know I'm impacting the people who want to be impacted. Having somebody who believes in you it's like I don't know how to explain it. It makes it all right, because you're going to have the down days where you can't get out of bed, where you struggle to put, good thoughts together, where you struggle to be productive. But knowing that there's somebody who believes in me and I don't want to let that person down, that's a huge help for me.
Yeah. So first, thank you so much, Kevin.
I
One
love
thing
you, brother.
I just wanted to say, I love you too, brother. Absolutely. I always try to say that we all had those, dark days where someone somewhere believed in us, when we didn't believe in ourselves. And to be able to be that for other people, I think, is the definition of leadership. And people can say, Kevin, that you repeat yourself, but self-belief and, being a team player in the sense of believing in others, like, repetition is the mother of skill. Like, you don't go to the gym once and you're fit for life.
Right.
Like, you need to hear this shit over and over and over again until it's in your fucking bones when it comes to believing in yourself and believing in other people. So just don't listen to anyone who's like, oh, you're just repeating yourself. It's like, if you don't like what we're doing, then you don't have to listen.
Right.
But the people who do get benefits, like I told you about that person who reached out, they lost their son, and it was a wife and a husband, and I'll keep it anonymous, but they reached out to me and said that I'm the one who pulled them out of that dark day. And then hearing what Kevin just said, it's just like, oh, it makes it all worth it, man. So for people out there who maybe are suffering, in that dark place of, substance abuse or alcohol or whatever it is, like, and they know they're living below their potential, just remember, like, become a team player. Love is the most powerful thing in the universe. Like, when you love the people around you and they love you, like, I'll think of my loved ones at the, the last couple reps on those sets, because I want to be there for the people that love me and that I love, and if I'm not my best self, then I'm not going to give to them in the way they deserve. So
we're getting deep up in here, Brad. We're getting deep.
I love it.
Yeah, hell yeah. So so for someone who maybe doesn't have that self-belief themselves, like you and I have been in that place, and we felt like we're on a rowboat and the oceans are getting rough. We had someone there to believe in us. What's an example of that in your life? And, like, did you do anything to initiate getting into that room with that person? Because, there's there's that saying, right? The universe helps those who help themselves. Like, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, for me, that person's always been my mom. Like, in growing up and basically burning all the bridges, and I mean, it cost my parents a lot of like finance, like a lot of money to go to treatment, and hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to drug treatment, and I caused so much headache for them. But at the end of the day, my mom, said it to me the best it could be said. Is like, I cannot support what you're doing anymore. But if you decide to improve your life, if you decide to something different, I'll always, be there to help you on that journey, in a sense. So, I mean, I think that kind of planted the seed that, like, she believed in me to kind of get out of this rut, but it just wasn't going to be right now. Like, I wasn't going to make this decision right now, but when I was ready, then I had that person.
That's beautiful. Especially when it comes, I think family is the biggest thing, because when I first started this, and I want to ask you about what made you quit your job and decide to chase your dreams, but when I first did it, my family thought I was crazy. They thought you can't make money this way. You need to, like, there was just it was a lot. There was a lot of like questions, and I kind of had to not listen to them from the aspect of like, you guys are kind of old school, and I understand why you don't believe in me, but I believe in me because I know what I'm capable of now, and I also know that technology allows things that you guys don't even know about. So, you got to take certain advice with a grain of salt. But what made you, like, what was the catalyzer that made you say, you know what, I'm going to work part-time and quit my job full-time and chase my dreams, chase my passions? And what exactly is your dream and your passion? Like, what, I always ask people, what do you want to accomplish before you die? So I just asked you like 10 questions, but
yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was working basically at a treatment center for 5 years. I went back to college after I got clean, graduated college, started working there. After 5 years, I was completely burned out. I was turned off to the idea of even working with people in recovery with addictions, because I was like, I went to over 15 funerals of teenagers that had overdosed and died, and it was heavy. And it really weighed me down. So I kind of looked at, and there was some other stuff. I'd always, I started out young. I mean, I was selling warheads in grade 5 for making money. I was cutting lawns. I was doing, lemonade stands. I was always doing that stuff, and it always was super cool to me. And then I decided, one day I called my wife and I said, I can't, it was a Sunday morning. I said, I can't do this job anymore. I'm going to have to quit this job. And so she kind of paused, and she's always been super supportive, and she was like, all right. So I put in a notice, immediate notice, not even a 2-week. And I just said, I quit this job on a Sunday, and I left it in my boss's mailbox at work. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I wanted to share the message of recovery, and I wanted to start to coach people, and I wanted to build a program, and I wanted to just help people in a way that not everybody can get to a residential program, and it's not for everybody. So I built a program which sells on Amazon. I also sell it on another website too. The revenue from it is nothing that you'd retire over. I also started the recovery coaching, to try to help people. And nice. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, a lot of road bumps. And since then I've transitioned, and my dream, my big goal now is to, help encourage people on how to build personal brands, how to build content, and just kind of inspire people in a sense that their story matters, and that you need to be investing in that story.
That's exactly what we're about. So right now you can't see us, but we're wearing a couple of shirts from our buddy that was on, Vinny, our buddy Vinny, his Won't Die Broke apparel clothing line. And we want to support people who are in the mission like we are. We want to help change the world. We want to help change the way people think. Yeah. We want to help change the way people live. So as far as I'm concerned, and I know as far as Alan's concerned, you are an ally in this journey for all of us. So any way we can help,
yes,
we got you in that regard for sure.
Absolutely. And that's the way we can show our gratitude for you sharing your story on the podcast. And it's great that you said what you're doing, because I think I don't want to get into the super, super deep, because I could talk for days about this, but there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 businesses. And basically tier 3 businesses, in my eyes, are the businesses like tobacco companies, alcohol companies, right? They're not necessarily making anyone's life better, but they're profiting off of it. Tier 2 businesses are businesses that are kind of like a service, and yeah, we need it, but they're not really changing anyone's lives drastically. And then the tier one businesses, which I think are blowing up because of the entrepreneurial revolution with technology, personal brands, things like that, are businesses that are like on a mission to really transform the lives of others. This is the real leaders. These are the the Elon Musk with Solar City, SpaceX and Tesla, like electric cars, electric, solar power plus space. Like, thank you, Eli, for being a fucking boss, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, to me, business is what I call the altruistic money machine, which is basically you make money by helping others, and then you reinvest that money into your own personal growth and the marketing, which is basically say things that matter to people who care, to help even more people. And that snowballs, right? So you said, like, what you're doing right now with your personal coaching plus your program on Amazon, which I'll definitely check out, that is helping people. You're literally making money by helping others, and then you can reinvest that money to make yourself better and to make your business better and to reach even more people. So I just want to congratulate you for taking that leap, and that's what we support, really, is making money not at the expense of other people, but to actually help other people. Like, if we lived in a world with all tier one businesses where every business was actually out to help others, it would be a world that I one day want to live in, man. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome, and thank you, so much.
I have a question for you, Brad, and I don't know exactly how to word it, but so we'll say you ended up in the dark place of addiction, and I always tell people that, like, I'm nothing special. I'm just a dude with a dream and a vision, and I have passion, and I'm nothing special. I don't believe I'm anything special. So
I think you're special.
I appreciate that. I think that anybody can do anything they set their mind to. So what? There's a lot of people who didn't make it, right? You just said you went to 15 funerals in 1 year for young people, and it's like, is there something that maybe they didn't know that you knew, or is it that it's obviously it's controversial because addiction is a controversial thing, and young people dying is a terrible thing, and nobody wants to see that. And basically, I think my question is, how do we get to everybody? You got to yourself to the point where you were like, you know what? I don't want to be in this cold jail cell anymore. I don't want to be dead. I have people I want to live for. How do we get through to people who haven't found those reasons yet?
Yeah, and it's a good question because I deal with people every day like that are just continuing, and they ask this question a lot. The only way it worked for me, and that's really kind of like the experience that I can draw from, is like I had to go through certain motions. Certain things had to happen, and it sucked along the way. All the tragedy, all the hurt, the headache that I caused for so long. But I really feel like everything happens in this world for a reason. And we don't understand it at the time why things are happening, but those things happen, and that builds us up to be a stronger person. If I didn't go through what I went through when I was younger with low self-esteem, being picked on and failing in school and not being the cool kid, and then going to addiction and losing everything and being deported from the United States back to Canada. And if I didn't go through all of that, there's no way in a billion years that I'd be able to quit a job and be confident enough that I can make money from being an entrepreneur.
Right.
I would never
So
take these chances. I would probably just kind of tuck myself in and just do what I had to do to get by, and just believe society in a sense that you have to work in a 9 to 5 and at a factory or go to college, and you have to do all this stuff. And I just don't think it would put me there. But I think something has to happen. But it also comes down to the way people think. Like for me, I worked the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous back in 2005 when I was in a treatment center. And once you do your fifth step, it suggested that you have a spiritual awakening. And I had no idea, and I didn't comprehend anything what that was. I was 17 years old. I was in treatment center for 12 months. My parents had shipped me there. And I woke up the next day after talking with my sponsor about all the wrongdoings I had done. And I mean, my thinking completely changed. And I wasn't sober since then, but my thinking and my view and my perspective completely changed. And when I tapped back into that, 6 years down the road.
What in particular shifted, if you don't mind me asking? Like was it something about your identity? Was it something about the way you viewed yourself, or was it something external?
Yeah, no, it was the way I viewed myself, but it was also the way I viewed the world.
Yeah.
The way I viewed the world happening around me, because I was really big into the victim role. I had 2 suicide attempts, basically due to like relationships that weren't going well, which was so selfish. But at the time, I could justify it. But when I woke up that next day, I could see kind of where I was going wrong in a different light. I was really big on blaming everybody else. I blamed my mom for being a single parent, for having twins at 16. I blamed my stepdad for, enforcing rules that I wasn't used to. I blamed, my teachers because I could never pass a test. I blamed my mental health because I had ADHD at a young age, and I used to see therapists and doctors. So I blamed everybody else. And when I did that, I could see inside there was something missing. There was a hole inside of me of this anxiety. I kind of explain it like before you're getting a fist fight, you have like a bunch of adrenaline that goes through your body. I had that all the time. I had that sort of fight or flight anxiety all the time. But I really became in contact with like, that was one big thing that was wrong with me. It wasn't everybody else. It was me. Was I ready to work on it and make the big changes and everything at 17 years old? No, not at all. But from that point on, I understood that I was the problem, not everybody else.
So Kevin told me before this interview that you and I were going to end up going deep, and we definitely are, because he said I would resonate with you so much, and it's kind of...
I am psychic.
Blowing my mind a little bit. It's blowing my mind a little bit how much you're resonating with me right now. So for those of you who don't know, I lost my father at 2. I grew up with a stepdad, not the ideal environment, but one of my heroes and my favorite author, Darren Hardy, wrote the book The Compound Effect, which I constantly shout out, and I will continue to shout out because it's, I think, the key to living the life that you want to live. So definitely read that if you get a chance. But he says this, Darren says, your adversity is actually your advantage. And what he means by that is because your adversity, going through that emotional difficulty, and it built the emotional muscle that now allows you to go do extraordinary things that ordinary people simply cannot do. So, you look at your sort of upbringing and some of the challenges in your childhood, and I noticed this across the board with people who are really living into their purpose and having a huge amount of impact, is typically they had a really, really difficult time, whether it was with stress and anxiety, whether it was their environment growing up, whether it was alcohol or heroin or whatever it is. Kevin as well, didn't exactly, I always tell Kevin, like, if we had the childhood that we, would have wanted back then, we would not be the men we are proud to be today. And I could not, that is the truest statement of all time. That said, there are some people, like Kevin mentioned, that don't, quote unquote, make it out. And we've had several people from our high school. We grew up in a small town of Uxbridge that did not, make it, and they've died of, overdoses. And that's been really hard on a lot of people in this community. And I know that you can relate, having gone to 15 funerals. And I think that one of the things that always has bothered me a lot, I always say never underestimate the power of a genuine compliment. And what I mean by that is there's always something to value in someone else, and maybe they were never told it. And I just see on Facebook after they pass away all these wonderful things that are said about them, and all I can think is, like, if anyone fucking told them beforehand, then they might not have, went down that dark road. So, I think that all of us as leaders have an obligation to really look for what's good in others and to fucking say it, because there's that quote, people don't get the roses while they can still smell them. And I know I just went deep there, but what do you think about that? And do you try to, I know that you do, you comment, 125 comments. I'm sure most of that positive stuff that you're responding to these people, like, they just need to hear that they're valued. And I think that that's, I always say that which is not appreciated will always depreciate. So if you learn to appreciate others, and, like, I think love is a verb, right? It's not just a fucking word. You have to do something to show someone that they're loved, and that can turn it all around for them.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And I was in a situation recently where I made a post, and a mother who lost her son commented on it. And it was like, how do you approach this, in a sense, with being empathetic and trying to, right, but also they're going through stuff. So I sent her a message, and we actually had a really good conversation, when I do this, I never want to approach people saying I understand, because I've never lost
Yep.
a son before. But I just be there to listen to people and their struggle. And I think that goes so far, and compliments and encouragement go super far. And also being willing to just listen to people, being uncomfortable, because it is super uncomfortable
Yeah.
to have a conversation with somebody in that situation. And I feel like a lot of people just avoid it. A lot of people just like, it's so uncomfortable. You don't know what to say. There's absolutely nothing right to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot wrong to say, but it's just kind of getting out there and just kind of being and feeling that with them. And I mean, that's what really drives my passion to work with people. It is really going through that journey with them, like not taking on their emotions, but just being there with them and being supportive, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And my gut tells me to run. It's like, Brad, run.
Yeah.
But that's when I know I need to get in there.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
man.
when I know I need to get in there.
Does that fulfill you as a person?
Yeah, a part of it does. But the other part of it too is that it's heavy.
Yeah.
I work in a medical clinic, now part-time, 2 days a week. And we work with people with addictions and stuff. And it's heavy. You really have to be careful when you constantly give, and you constantly are, hearing tragedies, and you're constantly involved and immersed in that environment. Like, you have to take care of yourself, or you will lose yourself. You will not make it, because it is tough out there. And especially now with the way things are for substance use and stuff, like it's the toughest it's ever been, I think.
Yeah, honestly, which is why I applaud you for doing what you do, because there's never been a more challenging time, I think, in terms of numbers and frequency of death, especially in this country with the opioid epidemic. And it's definitely gotten me emotional, because it's touched my life in a lot of ways, and you as well. But I'm glad that you said that. There's a quote that always kind of I remind myself of, and it's basically, givers need to set limits because takers have none. And what I mean by that is not that I don't think anyone's a taker on purpose. I think they're just in need. And I think that we've all been there. I've been in need before, and someone was there for me. So I think that it's key to set those boundaries, like you just said, of like, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to have anything to give when someone who's in need needs your attention. So one of the quotes that I live by is, give more when it hurts and you become more when it's over. And you said that, having that conversation with that woman who reached out, who lost her son, like, I had that happen to me recently. So first and foremost, like, being in a position where we're seen as a leader, to where someone who's going through something like that we could not even possibly fathom, reaches out to us, is like a responsibility. It's a privilege. It's a blessing. And I think that it also reinforces in such a strong way, like, we have to keep doing what we're doing, because it's helping, and people are noticing, and all the people that are sitting there throwing punches at me saying, what you're doing is stupid, you repeat yourself all the time, like Kevin was mentioning, the podcast is dumb, blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't matter to me at all, because what really matters is the people that it is helping. And I think that it's huge for us to be in those uncomfortable conversations, like you said, and to really like be in that and stay there, even though we want to run, because I think that's what's going to build the strength that we need to go and help other people.
Yeah, I for sure. And I mean, being uncomfortable and getting into that space is where I grow. And if I don't do that every day, then I'm just going to be the same person I am today, tomorrow. And I'm not really interested in doing that. I want to improve every day.
Love it.
And grow every day. And I spent too much of my life just being that guy in the background, and just, getting by and working jobs I just didn't like, and just getting fired from jobs and just letting everybody down. It's not that my mission or my goal here is to go out there and make millions of dollars and stuff. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons I went wrong first as being an entrepreneur. Is I put myself in a position where it was so stressful to pay the bills that I completely fell right on my face so hard that I woke up one day and I said, this is what you love. This is what you love to do. This is what you want to do. If you make some money or you go broke, don't worry about it, because you'll find a way. You always have, you always will. So I took the finances off the table, and I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not going to focus on, the money anymore. And she's kind of like, okay. All right. I could see the panic.
Yeah.
I could see the panic in her eyes.
Oh, yeah.
She was pregnant at the time
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
when I made all this. So it's like, I'm either going to get killed in my sleep tonight or I'm going to like do something. But I took that off the table and I was like, it doesn't matter because this is what I want to do. And I want to spread a message of hope and positivity. And as things started to happen that, I mean, in my wildest dreams, I could not even imagine. Like I can't even explain it, but things just started to fall into place, and I was making it. I wasn't making big loot, but I was making what I needed to without even asking for it. I
Right.
didn't even ask anybody for anything. It was just coming to my inbox on Instagram. It was coming to the website. And I was like, wow, that had to be the craziest month of my life. I didn't ask one person to spend any money on me. They just found me and they offered to spend money on me to do different services. And I was blown away, but then I knew I was on the right track.
And you're a good dude, Brad. Like you're a good. You can feel it. You have a good energy. You have a warm energy. Like the fact that people are willing to reach out to you speaks just as much about you as it does about them. Trust me, because I would reach out to you because you seem like the type of person that would understand, is understanding, that would take the time out. So I think the fact that people are willing to pay you, like, take some credit for that because that's just as much a result of who you are as a person as them.
And it's a reflection of how much you're helping others, right? Because currency, I'm an electrical and computer engineer by trade. I got my bachelor's in that. And current, there's voltage, current, right? And current is just energy, the flow of energy through a wire, right? So currency, in a way, is just energy flowing towards you because you're putting so many good things out into the universe to help others. And then that currency, the money, is coming back to you. And that's the altruistic money machine at work. We were at a seminar in Boston. I gave a speech on hashtag naturally fit for life. But shout out to Dragon. He's a Tony Robbins speaker, next level guy. And he just kept repeating this same quote that I think Tony also trains all of his people on, which is life will support more of that which supports life. And I think that you and I, in our darker hours in the past, that we weren't really supporting anything beyond ourselves. We were in that needy place. And when you're in a place of need and not a place of strength, you don't really have anything to give to others. And then that life-supporting life isn't really flowing back to you. And so we feel kind of alone and secluded. So anyone who's in that place right now, what do we say to them to kind of like a practical action, like what can they actually do and implement right now to really just start giving, even though they feel like they have nothing to give or they don't feel valuable, so that symbiotic flow back to them, like you just described, like you're like, oh, I can't even explain it, like starts to happen.
One of the things I did, and I heard this in another podcast I listened to, and I don't even remember who it was on. I was like having one of those days where I need to get some focus. I need to hear from other people who are doing this. And I hear in this podcast that the speaker starts out every day and he messages or calls 5 people and tells them, kind of like what we talked about earlier, like encouragement, compliments. Hey, thanks for the friendship. Hey, how are things going? People from high school that may not even be expecting you to reach out to them, but finds 5 people every day and also ends off with some gratitude. What did that person do for your life? And you let them know you appreciate them. And like doing this blew me away because people don't expect that. The world is busy, and for some person that you've kind of known in the background but haven't really talked to in like 5 years, and you reach out to them,
right? I
mean, it will change completely your world and change theirs. So I started with doing that 5 people a day.
That's huge.
What that started to do for me, though, which it's like this thing goes full circle here, is people that I hadn't dealt with in 5 years started messaging me, and they're like, hey, I see your message and that's so cool. And they knew me in the times when it was rough, and they were just like, they were sharing their stories with me, and I hadn't talked to them in 10 years, and now they're struggling with stuff, and they're in that place, and they're like, man, I was kind of the guy that people were like, just planning for that day. Like, you're never gonna be really much, you're always gonna kind of be a loser and somebody that just annoys people because you want so much from everybody and you don't give anything, like we talked about earlier. So that made me feel good and kept me on track, and it really just gives you that purpose. And it seems like these times came when I needed the most, when I was like when I was looking at jobs and I'm like, I can't do, this is killing me. I'm looking at my bank account. I'm looking here. I'm looking there. I'm looking at my change jar. I'm looking at what I can sell.
Right.
And
Thank
I'm
goodness
just
for
like,
eBay. It's bailed us all out.
I'm just like, oh my god! I'm looking at what I can do to make $100, and
Yeah.
I would get these people reach out to me, and it would keep me on track. It would keep me focused, and it just came around full circle. And so I think if there's anybody out there, volunteering also is phenomenal.
Ooh, huge.
Yep.
Volunteering at your local soup kitchen, volunteering at Boys and Girls Club, volunteering at the YMCA. I mean, get yourself out there and give back. There's no better feeling than being able to give back and help somebody in some way, shape, or form. I mean, there's no currency. There's nothing in the world that can really, for me anyway, that really does it. When I give without expecting anything back, and that's kind of like what I built my pages on and my Facebook on and everything. It's man. I don't expect anything from anybody. If there are people who want to, invest in services, like that's cool, but I don't expect anybody to, and it's cool.
I got a question for you, Brad. You were just saying how basically enough money keeps coming in where you're able to do your thing. What is your level? Like, how do you feel compared to how you used to feel when it comes to success? So like as a preamble, like I made a good amount of money, and then the next year my entire purpose changed and money didn't mean anything to me. Like it was just a number. And I would consider myself successful at that point, but the fact that I'm able to literally change people's lives, and I have had people say that you saved my life, I feel more successful than I ever have, and I can only imagine what comes after this. I feel so successful now, and I have a feeling you're probably going to say and feel and think the same.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do. Like, getting into this stuff, and it's coming up on 1 year, I had no idea what it was going to look like for me, but I've grown so much, and it's a success to me. It's not, I kind of looked myself in the mirror, and I'm like, you know what, helping people and working and, doing this stuff, you're probably never going to, get huge, but I don't need huge. For me, like, I'm simple. I make sacrifices in other areas of my life to support my family, and that's what makes me happy. But I have the freedom to, my daughter's 6 months old, and I mean, I'm going to doctor's appointments. I'm hanging out with her. I'm hanging out with my wife. I'm doing something I love. I can stop my day and have a phone call for 2 hours with somebody that I haven't talked to in a bit. I can talk with my mom, who's like huge, my brothers, my stepdad, my dad. I mean, that kind of stuff. When I was working, I didn't have those opportunities, and I didn't see it. I was so wrapped up in working, making a paycheck, and going through this cycle, and working, getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and working 60 hours a week, but only getting compensated for 40, and going above and beyond, and never getting a raise, and working harder than the people around me, but still getting paid most of the time less than what they made. It wore me down.
You can make more money. You cannot make more time. Like that's what it ultimately comes down to.
So here's a crazy thing, and I don't want to make it seem like money is not important at all, because obviously, so money does not buy happiness. We say that all the time, but a lack of money can definitely create unhappiness when you can't take care of your family and stuff, right? So the way I see it is money is part of the lifeblood of the growth of your business, the growth of your mission, the growth of yourself, right? If I can't afford a gym membership, then there goes my mission, right? So, so money is important. It's currency, but I made a buttload of money in corporate America. Kevin made a very good amount of money in his old job. I'm sure that you made more money, maybe you make more now, but at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, you probably made a lot less money than you used to. So, so we have three people right here. And here's the thing, right? When you're I always say it's so hard to see the whole picture when you're in the frame. So for someone who's not, like when you said that you were at work and you were working 60 hours, it's like, it seems like your whole world, and it seems like there's no way out. And that's a good analogy for addiction as well. We have three people that all feel more successful now than we ever did back then. Money alone is never going to make you feel fulfilled and successful, and that's a fact. Don't get me wrong. If you can't afford, to invest in yourself and to invest in others and to have a roof over your head, clothes on your back, like, money's important, okay? It's the lifeblood of your mission. The mission will die on the vine without money. But we are all making less money now than we were at one point probably, but yet we feel far more successful. What's your take on that? And how do we get people to really start making money doing what they feel fulfilled? Because fulfilled people don't hurt others. You know, they don't go into a dark room and do, drugs and alcohol. Like I used to drink alone, right? So I wasn't fulfilled back then, and now I know why. Hindsight's 2020. What do we say to those people?
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, I think one of the biggest things for me was in sense the word freedom, and it's a big word and stuff, but the ability to kind of get off the grid, the ability to not. I've always been like this. The ability to not have to depend the system to do what I needed to do. That part there alone was a big part of like what I look at being successful. Is that ability to not have to do it, because you mention this to people, like you go to your coworkers. When I thought of this, I'm like, this is kind of my plan. I mean, they look at you like you are just pure insanity.
Oh yeah.
You can't do that.
Like
you know,
have
most of these. Yeah, and you break down the bills. You're like, well, I got to make to cover my basic bills. I got to make $2,000 a month. And you tell them that, and they're just like, So I mean, that kind of stuff there, and a big part of me too was like, I got to show people that this is possible. Like I really have to. These people believe, and since I've started this, the jobs that I work. I have a small group of people that I mentor type, probably close to 10 people now. One guy's an author. There's 2 people that want to do personal training.
Nice.
There's one woman there that wants to do empowerment for women. There's another guy who collects toys. He sells toys at the market. And all these people came to me because they're like, this is super cool. But at first they laughed. And I love them. I love them because even when they laughed, I was like, please, like, everybody laugh, because I like that, because I'm gonna work even harder. Now, not only do I want to win for me and my family and my people, I got to win because you guys have to see it's possible. And I go about my recovery, in the same light. And people I come in, contact with, it's like, man, I gotta show that this is possible in every interaction and stuff. So,
and you are, like,
you are.
I think if I was to say like you are successful, and I know obviously me saying that doesn't mean anything because I'm not the one paying your bills, but to me,
we could arrange that. I mean, I could send them down to you.
You promote the podcast. We'll think it up. We'll think about it.
Yeah, right.
There
I think what you're doing, honestly, Brad, and like I mean this from the bottom of my heart, what you're doing is amazing. The fact that you took your experiences, you took your life and realized, like, you know what? I can take this experience, all these lessons I've learned, and I can help people who haven't seen this light yet. I think it's amazing, and I think you're an incredible person, Brad.
You are.
Wow, thank you so much. It's
or as Kevin would say, you fucking are
you
one.
fucking are one.
Actually, my best friend is from Massachusetts, and I just it's been a while since I talked with him, so this remind me I need to give him a call. And I love the accent. I love it.
Well, hopefully he'll be on your number 1 on your list of 5 people to contact tomorrow.
Exactly.
Oh man, yeah, he will be.
So we're running out of time. Is there anything I want you to be able to plug? I know you said you had your program. What was it, a 21-day program?
Yeah. It's on Amazon. You can search Brad Mcleod Recovery. 21-day recovery program basically takes you through 21 days of recovery. It's not to to avoid going to a treatment center or avoid going to your doctor or your therapist or your other professionals. It's basically some life skills that I built upon, like changing behaviors, changing the way I thought. It goes into some of that stuff. So for people to check it out, be good.
Brad, I'm gonna put you in touch with one of my mentors, self-made millionaire mentors. And again, grain of salt with the self-made. No one's self-made, but Terrence McMahon, he's big in this arena. He wants to change the world of recovery. I'm gonna put you in contact with him because allies are critical. No one does it alone, and ships in the same harbor rise and fall together. One thing I want to say, man, is you're happy, healthy, and productive. And you used to not be. I'm happy, healthy, and productive. Kevin as well. And we're inspiring other people to be happy, healthy, and productive. And honestly, man, when it comes down to it, happy, healthy, productive people only want to help others. They don't want to hurt anyone, And I think that the more we lead by example, and that's the key to everything. I was reading a book on leadership literally at Barnes & Noble yesterday. Made a post about it on Instagram today. And the only way anyone's going to do anything positive is if the people around them are also inspiring them, motivating them, educating them on how to do the same. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being you, for turning your pain into power. And there's so many people out there that need you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll say goodbye to the listeners, and then, like I said, we can chat for a little while longer and discuss what's next for Brad and us.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to sign off, ladies and gents. Thank you so much. Look for Brad on Instagram, and he posts super motivational stuff. So make sure you like it and comment and all that happy jazz. Yeah.
Yes. You are one.
You are one. Bye, guys.
Bye.